Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Ian Phillips. Thank you so much for 507 subscribers. We have a brand new story for you guys here today. So Meta, the social media company, is now accused of using AI-assisted performance systems that effectively penalize employees for taking protected medical, disability, pregnancy, parental, or family leave. Now, if that doesn't sound bad, I don't know what does, and it's already giving me flashbacks to The Social Network, that movie. We all know it, and in addition to that, it's even worse than that. This is giving me flashbacks a little bit here to the movie Gattaca, which remember when they were discriminating against people here for their genetics. So, not looking good here, but this, again, these are just accusations so far. So we're going to read you a little bit about the story here, and then we'll talk about it here. So, it says here that 26 anonymous Meta employees selected for termination filed the 71-page complaint in federal court in Northern California. Contrary to some headlines calling them, quote, former employees, right? Reuters and AP report that they remained employed when the lawsuit was filed, with most separations scheduled to begin July 22nd. Now, they're asking a judge to preserve their jobs and benefits while their underlying discrimination claims proceed through Meta's mandatory individual arbitration process. The complaint alleges that Meta used a constellation of internal systems, including MetaMate Assistant, employee-built second brain agents, AI token usage dashboards, keystroke and activity data, code commits, productivity measurements, and algorithmically assisted performance rankings to help reduce its layoff selections. Now, the central accusation is not necessarily that Meta has entered things like, has cancer, has a heart disease into the algorithm. It is essentially that employees on lawful leave naturally produce fewer tokens, commits, and measurable outputs, and Meta allegedly failed to neutralize those absences before comparing them with continuously working colleagues. Every plaintiff has taken a requested protective leave or disability accommodation during the preceding 2 years, and the complaint describes, among other examples, a scientist selected while on pre-birth pregnancy leave 2 days before giving birth, an employee selected 16 days into a second medical leave, an engineer whose manager allegedly tied a reduced rating to a, quote, broken time caused by an injury. Roughly half the plaintiffs had taken pregnancy, parental or caregiving leave, or bereavement leave. Now, Meta denies these allegations and says that its workforce decisions were made by people, not artificial intelligence. And that factual dispute will be crucial here because human approval, however, would not necessarily end the legal question if human managers relied heavily upon rankings or inputs that systematically penalized protected absences. The claim invokes the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, Americans with Disability Act, Pregnancy Discrimination Act, and Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, Title VII, and several state laws as well. And so, they're really trying to throw the hammer down here at Meta, and understandably so, because if they are, unjustly being discriminated against, right, when they're supposed to be in that protected class, well, then one of the things that you would say is, all right, well, like the company, cannot do what they're doing, and we have to stop this moving forward because the last thing we want to do is start having gigantic tech companies here, setting precedents moving forward. Really horrible situation here. Obviously, this raises a whole number of ethical debates. I mean, everybody's always been talking about IBM, the famous IBM quote that said, a computer can never be held accountable, and therefore a computer must never make a management decision. And so if these decisions are being made using computers, it's just simply a metrics game. Sometimes maybe that's fine, but if you have it where like these people were in a protected class and now you're only firing them on the basis of these numbers, again, which should have been thrown out of this process here. It's like now you're opening up a can of worms here, and it's like then at what point do we stop? I've always been a huge fan of AI, and I'm going to say that till the day I die here, at least until they take over the world and kill all the humans, right? But the the central message for me has always been, wouldn't we want to live in some form of like utopia whereby we have the robots doing all the work, where we can just essentially be like we're in the Jetsons almost, right? And life's just fantastic, sunshines and rainbows, right? And we look at the little hamster riding the rainbow and like the rainbow unicorn, like that little meme there. It's looking so happy. Like, wouldn't we want that like for our society here? And I almost feel like AI is like we're so close. We're so close. Now, robotics may be a little bit ways behind the AI there. And so maybe we're not quite there yet. It's like, but maybe our kids' generation, when by the time they grow up, maybe they're in a situation whereby you don't necessarily have to work. And wouldn't that be great? Now, that's going to require a lot here. And maybe that's only in like the most modernized countries in the world. And maybe that's also in only the most, hardcore social system countries in the world too. Because the United States, we ain't doing that for quite some time. I mean, for God's sake, we can't even get fucking healthcare yet. You think that they're going to be giving us personal robots to do our jobs for us? Absolutely not. But in the same breath, there is an argument to be made that if the robots are a lot cheaper than humans, maybe they'll start to go that way. But then it becomes, okay, are we going to get a UBI? And, that it's absolutely not. So, I mean, who knows? I don't know. There's lots of back and forths with this here, but one thing I will tell you here is that we might not have our robots, but the company certainly will, and we might be laid off as a consequence of that. And sometimes maybe that's okay in the future if we had the right social systems in place. Now, does it look like we're getting there? Absolutely not. And so, therefore, we need to be regulating these companies to use AI for good as opposed to bad. Now, again, I'm like very, very libertarian here. I don't think it's any of the government's business what we do, with AI. But having said that, there's certain boundaries and guidelines that you have to follow. Right? And so, like, if you're discriminating against protected classes using things like AI, that's where we have to draw the line in the sand, right? It's not like, okay, you get AI, you can do whatever you want with it. Like, yeah, absolutely. But again, the line is in the sand. You can't use it for certain things. Like we've already sort of vetted that out as a society here, and that's what the lawsuit is alleging. So I suppose it's interesting to see where we will all go at a certain point here. But it gives you like those Gattaca vibes in some regards. Like somebody gets cancer, or like their genetics are more prone to one way or another, and like the algorithms now are starting to predict some of these things. It's like, oh no, it's like that might be a little something there. That might be a little. Yeah, that might be something to take into consideration. So, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what goes on. I remember there was a famous case years ago. It was a young girl, I believe, and she was pregnant. She was probably like in her teens, right? And probably like, I don't know, let's just say like 14 or something. I don't know what her age was, but let's say she's like 14. And the parent was like all upset. They keep sending like, these like these catalogs for like baby supplies and stuff like that. And like the parent gets like all pissed off. They're like, why are you sending this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, first of all, like, bro, how do you even care? But like, anyways, they're all pissed off about it. Turns out the company's algorithms actually predicted that the girl was pregnant. Right? And the parents had absolutely no idea about it. I can't remember if the girl did or not, but either way, these algorithms are very, very powerful. And in some regards, again, we got to like keep our eye on them here, because if they're using these for evil, then it becomes an issue. But again, obviously they can be used for good. Could also be used for evil. So we just gotta, again, protect the First Amendment here, but in the same breath, we also have to protect, the rights of individuals. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. But what I can tell you here is not looking good here for Meta, and I'm sure they're juggling hundreds of lawsuits at any given point. I remember I actually won a class action against Facebook years ago, and I don't know how long it took. It probably took like 5 years for that settlement to reach. I think I got paid like $40 or something. So I was like, yes, I was like another free $40 for me. But crazy stuff here. AI firing people, that's something we gotta. And it's an interesting question to me. I've always been back and forth on the whole AI thing, but I'll tell you what, I think the older I get, the less likely I am to just say no holds bars with respects to AI. But has its argument here. My big thing has always been like, what do you want to give AI to China? You want them to be the ones who inherit the earth with respects to AI? I certainly don't want them to be the ones who inherit the earth with AI. And look at the crazy shit they're already doing, right? Which is, again, like, it has to be used for good. So when you say things like flock cameras, for example, it's like, no, absolutely not. We are not going to have that in our society on the scale with which we do. And if we do have flock cameras, they can only be used for certain purposes. They cannot be used to terrorize your citizens here, to make it like some police state in 1984. Again, you have to draw that line in the sand. And so, you can say maybe something is allowed, but again, where do we draw that line in the sand? And I think that's what we have to vet out, and we have to protect the rights that we do have, especially when they're protecting protected classes, like people who are sick or with cancer, for example. And so, again, like should be a lawsuit that should vet out that process there. So hopefully that's clear. I know I always have trouble expressing myself when it comes to AI sometimes, but hopefully you guys did enjoy the video here. If you did enjoy, please appreciate that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. My name is Dr. Phillips, and we will talk to you later. Peace.